All right, welcome back. Today we're going to go over unit frames. So for those of you who don't know what unit frames specifically are the frames that show either a character or an NPC. And it could be your unit frame being your player frame, your target frame, target of target, focus frame, tank frames, raid frames. It could be almost anything. They are all set up extremely similar, and you can actually copy many of the settings from one to another in ElvUI. So let's take a look at what they are and how we set them up. So first of all, let's take a look at the general settings for unit frames. So this is what you're going to disable from Blizzard. And as you can see, I have everything disabled from Blizzard, and I have my unit frames enabled. And this is, I could set a thin border, and OOR is out of range. So when a unit, an individual, an NPC is out of the range of the spell that I'm trying to cast, it goes to 0.35 opacity. And then I also set up smart rain filters, overrides any custom visibility. So I usually keep this set, and then I use the texture that I use is the same I use across all of my UI, and that is cloud. Now you could set it up for smooth bar transition if you wanted to, so that means as the health goes down or goes up, or maybe the energy or mana or something along that lines goes down or up, it'll be a lot smoother. So for the general settings, I also set the font the same as I do for the rest of my unit frames. I set Expressway 15, and then I outline it. And then I put a color around the border is a thin black border. Health by value. I color my health by value. So in other words, as the health goes down, it will start changing colors until it gets into a bad spot, which will end up being red. And then you can set the class color by power, and you can set your transparency here as well. So this right here is reaction. So if there is an NPC up here, for example, you can see the name is all red. Whereas mine is my class color. But if the individual is neutral, then it would show up as yellow, and then bad would be red, such as bad here. Okay. And then you can set your interrupts here, whether interruptible or not. That is the cast being interruptible. And then, auras by type and color, and you can set your colors along the same lines. And anytime you're going to set a color on anything, it's set the same way on everything. Now, again, don't forget these are general, and it's going to transfer over to your unit frames unless you change it. Okay, so I also put up health predictions. As you can see, if there is an absorb on there, it'll show up as yellow. If there is going to be healing added, then it's going to be, and these are all transparent colors. And then healing absorb. So if you're in the middle of a raid and there is a healing absorb on one of the raid members, and you have to heal them through that. So you have to heal up all of that absorb before they start taking healing. Then that's what that would do. And one example I can use is in current tier. There is Desolate Host who throws a spear at a player, and they get knocked from the corporeal realm into the spirit realm, and the spirit realm healer has to heal the person that got knocked into the spirit realm from the corporeal realm, and then they can leave that realm and go back to the corporeal realm. That will show up as a healing absorb. Okay, so the class resource, I set these as, I just left these as standard, and it seems to work fairly well. You will see that I have no, even if I was on my DPS spec, you wouldn't see any chi on here, and that's because I don't use it. I use tell me when, that shows me how much chi I actually have. All right, so that's it for the general settings. So once you do that, you have to go in. Now, before I start, okay, if you see right here, there is enable. If you do not have any one of these enabled, then it won't show up. No matter what you change, it won't show up. So the first thing you have to do is hit enable. All right, so if you do have one set up that you want to copy, then you can select from this drop down. It'll copy all of the settings from that frame and put it on the frame that you're working on. And that usually works for me on a few exceptions. So what I'll do is I'll usually set up my player frame first, and I'll set the height and width. So this one is 270 in width, and the height is 54, and that's usually a good setting for me, and the way that my UI is set up. And then I'll copy that over to my target. The best way to do it is target yourself, and then you can see that. All right, so combat fade, it fades the unit frame when out of range, and not castable, which I've already set up, and then I've also set up healing predictions. Text toggle on NPC, hidden on NPC targets, in addition to the name text, so on and so forth. Everything that I set up, I usually customize within that individual frame. So at rest icon is this icon right here. As you can see, I have mine enabled, and that just gives me an indication of when my unit is at rest. And really, it's not that important when you're at max level, but the thing that it does is it tells me, okay, I can change a talent. So one of the things Blizzard has done is they have set up so that your talents are only changeable when you're at rested, or if you've used a tome or something like that. So as you can see, right now I can change any one of these I want. So having this here tells me, so when I'm out in the world, for example, I am out in Azuna. If I go to the Court of Ferrandis, where the turn-in for the World Quest is, inside that building is a rest area. I know that because I see that I'm at rest. That allows me to change any one of my talents. Okay, so that's what that is. Combat icon just puts a icon right here showing me it's cross swords or red cross swords. You can shut that off if you want. The threat display mode, so that glows around me when I have, and it's around the edge of my unit when I have. Now you can set an icon any place you want, or you could set an info panel border, or you could set none, your choice. Now, what I've done is I've actually set up a, I think it's tell me when. It's either a tell me when or a, let's take a look. Yeah, it's a tell me when. It shows that I'm in PvP, and it actually counts down how long before I'm out of combat. So when I'm in PvP area, this will show up. When I leave combat, it'll show how long before. So theoretically, I don't have to have this combat icon showing, or correction, the PvP icon showing, and actually this can go away as well if I wanted to. Okay, so auras. I have disabled my auras, but you could set them up. And what are auras? They are, let me uh, let me toggle in and see if I can see them. I forget if they show up. So they don't show up right now. So what they are is they are basically timer bars that show up above the unit frames. And if you want them, you can have them. I don't have them because I usually use either weak orders or tell me when to track that kind of information. You can set some custom text up. Um, it's basically a font string. So what you do is you want to, let's say that instead of having your mana show up, for example, which I think that's considered powered, I have it disabled because I use tell me when. There's my mana bar. But if you want just the numbers to show up over here, you can set up a custom string that will show up. So what you do is you name the string right here. So let's say you want to create one called my mana. So I'm going to say my mana. Okay. And then when you go to this, there it is right here. You set my mana, and then you can set your string. So by doing that, you set your font, you set your font outlines, and again, all of mine stay the same. And then you want to put your custom string here. As you can see, there should be a whole list here, but there is an issue with it right now, and it can't be updated. When ElvUI gets back online, then you will have the ability to actually do a search on their website to find custom strings. So an example is here, name, color, name. So what that means is turns the color of the name, which is right here. As you can see, it's custom. And then you can have difficulty level and smart level. There's a whole bunch of different strings that you can put in here. If I go to my target power, because I do display the power over here of my target, because that's usually a boss that I will keep targeting. As you can see, I have 1.1 million mana. If I start casting, you can see that it's actually going down. And as you can see, above my target frame, I do keep the auras up on those because I do like to track auras that way on those things. So you can actually set your power so that it shows up. Okay. And that's all there is to that one. And I delete that one and it goes away. All right. So that's the health. Not much to health. I do attach my health text to my health frame. So that's this right here. And if I was to change this, it would change how this string was read. So as you can see, I have 4.2 million health. The health is health color, so that stays the color of the health. Health color current percent. So when I'm at 100%, it will show 4.2, and when I'm at a deficit, it'll show the health that I have, and it will put a hyphen, and it'll put a percentage. So if I'm at 90% health, then it'll show whatever 90% of 4.2 million is, hyphen 90%. And that's how all of it works for power and everything else. All right, so power. As you can see, I have it set here, but I don't have it enabled. There's no power showing on this bar right here. And that's, you can change the coloring of that. So if you don't want it as your standard color, which is right now the mana color right now for him. Now, if this was Fury, let's say I was a Fury Warrior, this would be red, because that would be my rage, and this would be red as well, based on what I'm seeing here. But again, I don't have this enabled. Remember, you have to enable each one of these in order to get them to show up. Okay. And that is, let's see, this is filled. That's the height of it, how high it goes. If I was to enable this, you would see my health show up, and then you would see the text show up with it. And then by changing the health, you can show how much health you have. The other thing you can do is you could drop this down, say, for example, maybe move it over here. And then instead of power color, you take off the power color, and that would be white. So that's another possibility for what you could do with this as well. So let's put this back down to 10 in case I ever decide I want to enable it. You can detach this from frame. Maybe you want to put your power here. You can detach it and put it over here. And by detaching it, you can also move your text so that it is on your power frame instead of your health frame. So as you can see, I have my text here. Maybe I want to attach it to my power. That would put it down here on my power. So if I was to do that, there's power, right? And then make it a little bit bigger. And as you can see, it's a little bit more readable. So if this is 54, let's say I want to split that. That would be what, 22? I want to make it half the size of 54. All right, let's make it 30. No, 33. No, 32. I think would be half. No, that'd be 64, wouldn't it? 25. Let's 27. Okay, so let's just use 27 as a number. Let's say that I don't want this to be the color of the mana because it may not show up very well. Don't forget, when you change something in here, you have to hit OK. As you can see, that's white. Now, the other thing maybe I want to do is I want to put the text position to the left. But I don't like it. As you can see, this is just off, but this is right on. So let's change the text offset to 0. Okay, so that's still not good. I want to line it up right with the health text. So that's 2. I think that's close. Let's check to see what the health is set at. So the text offset is 2, so that's right. So these are lined up exactly the same. But I do happen to like power color. So I'm going to say bracket, power color, bracket, enter, and it changed it back to the mana color. Now, maybe I want to check percent as well, because maybe that's important. So I say hyphen %. And there we go. So now when I start using it, you can see that the percentage shows up. Now, the one thing that I do not like is how the cast bar actually covers part of this, and we'll change that later. And for this guide, I'm going to leave this up, and then I'll disable it later. So that's how you change all of that stuff. If you want to change the vertical, you can change the Y offset. And again, I showed you how to do this. All right. And that detaches it from frame. So name. If you want your name to show up, then you have to actually put where, let's see, center, health, format. So as you can see, if I want my name to show up, I say bracket, name, bracket. And there my name is. But I want it to show up as class color. So I'm going to go bracket, name color bracket, and it changed it to my class color. And that is an option. Now, there is no enable or disable on this, okay? And the way you disable this is you just take this all out and it's gone. And that's it. And then you can set how it's lined up, center, left, right, top left, top bottom, wherever you want to set it. But like I said, I know what my name is. I don't need to see my name. And that's just one other thing that I don't enable. So portrait. Portrait is actually kind of cool. So as you can see, I have mine set for an overlay. So it shows up right here. And it's the same with these two, both of these. Okay. Let me change one thing real quick because this is really starting to bother me. So changing the tooltip a little bit. I'm going to move the tooltip down here. And that just moves where the tooltip will show up. If you don't, you can play with it to determine, let's say I want to put my tooltip right here. We'll go into tooltips later on and it'll show right there. And that's actually kind of perfect for me right now. So, portrait. As you can see, you select portrait and you enable it. If you don't enable it, there will not be one. Overlay is what puts it in the background and kind of puts it into the unit frame itself. If I was to take that check mark out, it would have my unit frame right here. And then you can change your width. Maybe you want it a little bit bigger. There's a portrait. This is your standard, Blizzard, almost any other. And it will just kind of move the health and mana over a little bit. So let's put this at, let's say, actually 54 by 54 would make it square, I think. That's about square right there. So, because remember, it's 54 high is the height of the unit frame. So 54 width would make it square, 54 by 54. And then you can set, the model rotation. So by doing that, you actually rotate the angle of the model. And then your camera distance, right now I'm set for 2, that by changing it will zoom in or zoom out on your character. And this is a 3D model or a 2D model. And then you can do your offset on here as well, which again, X is left to right, Y is top to bottom. Okay, by putting the overlay back in, it overlays over the health bar, which gives you that 3D image into the health bar. All right, so that's done. And remember, if you don't enable it, it won't show up. Okay, PvP and prestige icon. As you can see, I don't have that enabled. If I did enable it, it would show up where I do be marked PvP. So let's PvP enable. There we go. So there's the PvP icon. As you can see, there it is right there, and there's the prestige icon with it. However, I put my own PvP icon right here. So now I'm going to disable PvP. Now remember, I said it might tell me when I do that. So as you can see in the background, that PvP is counting down as well. Well, this is doing the same thing. So I'm going to actually disable that. But you can set the scale on it. You can set where you want it. Top, bottom, left, right, whatever you want to do with it. And then you can use your XY to precisely enable it and set it to wherever you want. Okay, and this is the PvP text. The way that I did that is, as you can see, it still shows up on mouse over. And that's this right here that does it. If you don't want it to show up at all, So this is the color of it. PVP timer, mouse over, and then R. I'm not exactly sure what the R means. I haven't figured that one out yet. If I do, I'll let you know. I'll put it in the description below. But if you don't want your PVP to show up at all on your mouse over as it is right now, you can see it flashing in the background. That shows up as that I'm still marked PVP and how long before I'm marked PVP. That string does. And by deleting that out, it will get rid of it completely. All right, so buffs and debuffs. I usually, on my player frame, and normally on my boss frame, I don't enable buffs or debuffs. As you can see, these are not enabled, but here's a good example. I just enabled it, and the Vantis rune for Sisters of the Moon that we just did this week is a buff. Now, you might ask, well, why the hell is it so high up? Well, it's so high up because it's attached to my debuffs. And I don't have any debuffs, but this is where it is showing, or it would show if I had some. This is the number of rows, and this is the number per row. So I could change this, and maybe I wanted to have 3 rows of buffs that would show up. So I would just change 3 rows, and let's say I wanted 12, so it'll change the size of the icon. And then the other thing is size override, so you can change the size of your XY offsets so that you can actually move it up and down. But remember, if you move it down, you're going to be over the top of your debuffs. And then, like I said, you could change what it's attached to. So maybe you want to attach to your power frame. Maybe you want to attach to your health frame. That's where my debuffs are right now. That's why I've attached that to my debuff frame. And then you can decide if you want to click through. And then this is how you actually sort. And then you can add to blacklist what you don't want to show up and what you want to show up. I block non-personal auras, so these are just showing my auras. Anytime you're talking to auras, you're really talking about your buffs or debuffs is what you're talking about. And then you can put on additional filters if you want. And then the next one is debuffs, and the same thing with them. It's exactly the same. Everything is the same. Just as I have it attached to my unit frame on debuffs, so that shows up. Let's go back and disable. I don't think I have any debuffs right now. No. Let's go disable my buffs. Now that's gone. And cast bar. So as you can see, there's my cast bar. As you can see, it overrides my mana bar when I cast. I really don't want to do that. So let's get into it first. This is the width. I usually set it the width of the frame, the unit frame. And then the height, I customize that to how I want it. So this one, for example, I have 10. Or correction, I have the height set to 20. I also show any latency. So that'll show up as a red indicator at the end. This is how much is remaining. And this is my time right here. And that's the spark that shows. You can see it right behind the number right there, that whitish spark. And that kind of tells you exactly where it is. Display the target you're current casting on, so you could actually add a name on there if you wanted to. I think it would get a little bit big. And then let's see, what else do we have? This enables icon inside the cast bar, so that if I didn't have this, the icon would be over here of this cast bar, and this is the spark I was talking about. And that's enabled, and if I had this unchecked, then you could change the size of the icon where it is, so on and so forth. And that's all there is to that. But we did talk about moving that. So what I want to do is I want to kind of move that down so that it isn't actually in my frame. And that you do that by using your anchors. As you can see now, it's below it. See how it's below it now? And that's how you would do that. And when I get rid of my power bar, this would actually be, the unit frame would come down, and this would actually be attached to my unit frame then, the bottom of my unit frame. Okay, so that's how you change that. Class bar. Class bar, it shows things like if I was to change my talent. So I just enabled that. I'm going to go change the talent so that we can do this. And one thing that shows up is my Jade Serpent. I'm going to put this right here because I'm not going to keep this changed. So there's my Jade Serpent. And if I go in here, I have enabled this. So frame strata is how deep into the layering it is. So if we go here and we toggle in here, this is the class bar right here. And it should be showing. All right, for some reason it's not showing. Wonder if maybe it takes a reload for it to show, but it shows things like my Jade Serpent, or if I was in Tank Spec and I had the Ox statue, totems, it'll show, and things along that line is what it will show. So I am going to now change my talent back, and my Jade Serpent goes away. And I am going to disable the cast bar, or class bar, excuse me. I wonder if that's in the general as well. Ah, that's probably what it was right there. Let's try that. There it is. So you have to have it enabled here as well. And as you can see, it does have a minute count. It does have a countdown. It's up to 15 minutes. And that will stay up. By disabling it, gets rid of it. So you have to have it enabled up here as well. Okay. So let's change this back to Gigi. And go back to player frame, class bar, and we have that disabled already. All right, so remember to have it enabled up in your unit or your action bars as well, because that shows up as an action bar. All right, so auras, we discussed auras, and I can show you the auras on my target because I keep them up on my target, but I don't keep them up on myself. So those are the auras, and that's how they line up. And then your buffs and debuffs, you can have them show up above that, or you can have them show up below it. Your choice. Again, my buffs and debuffs are up here anyways, so I don't have them on me. And the auras I'm not concerned with because I track all of my other spells and stuff right here. And I don't need to see this on me. I can tell by what buffs and debuffs I have. So that's what your aura bar does. You can have it above your frame, attached to your frame. You can change, attach to buffs and debuffs, so on and so forth. Coloring specifics. You can actually change the coloring if you want. Again, mine's not enabled. And friendly orders would show, same with debuffs. And unit threshold is not set right now. You can set it as high as 3,600, and that's seconds in seconds. So that's 3,600 seconds. 0 will also disable it. As you can see, I have it. And then just like buffs and debuffs, you can make your blacklist and whitelist to allow or disallow certain spells that you just never want to see, but you want to see an aura from something else. You can do that as well. So that's how the aura bars work. The information bar, you can enable if you want. There it is. You see it showing. It doesn't show because there's nothing there for it to be, and you can set transparency and height. I don't use this at all. And then your raid icons. So if I was to put a raid icon on me, you can see that it's showing up here, and I have that enabled. That allows me to see certain characters that are marked, and if I'm marked, then it'll show up on me. But that's the same thing with all my other unit frames. And you can put it at the top. You can set the size. Let's say I want to set this at, let's just set it at 20. Increased it in size just a little bit. Maybe you want it at center, and you can move it to the center, and it's the center of your bar. Okay. And then you can set your XY offset if you want. I am going to set it to top center, as I had it right there. And I have it to an offset of 8. Maybe I just want it offset to 17, where it puts it at the very top of my unit frame. All right. So let's set this back to 8 where I had it. And there, whoa, that size, wrong one. That's 20. And the offset is 8 that I wanted to set. There we go. So it shows up partially on and partially off. And you set that on the same with the rest of them. So that's done. That's your unit frame. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to go to my power bar and I'm going to disable that. And we talked about how you can enable and disable. So there you go. I don't like to see that on mine. I like to have my unit frame clean. I like to see, because I usually target a boss and I can see how much power they have. Because as you know, with some of the bosses, when they hit 100% power, they do something. That allows me to see that. And this will tell me how much of that. So if they're at 90% power, then that will show 90. That was a lot, right? All right. So the easiest thing that you can do is you can, because when I am serious as everything, these are all exactly the same. We'll get into party and boss frames and stuff like that. But when you're talking your pet frame, focus frame, target of target frame, your target of target of target frame, those are all the same. So what you can do is you can actually set these exactly the same by copying, and you go copy from player, and then you just do your little tweak. So for example, the difference is here that I have the name showing, I have the power showing, and I have the power bar showing. So once you copy from the player, you go and you do your edits so that it works how you want. I mean, as you can see, for my target of target frame, which is this one, okay, then I don't have the health showing. I have the name really short. This is this is very short, and this is short. And you do that just by going in and changing a little bit of information. Okay, I'm sorry, that was name. Name equals medium. So that's medium. So if I was to change that to short, get rid of the medium, and it didn't change on the target frame very much. Let's change it to very short. There you go. So there's 5 digits there. And every time you change it, I believe the number changes. That is 10. and I think 15 is, and I'm going to keep it as short because 10 is enough. Um, but if I was to change this back to 15, medium is 15. Um, and you can, once ElvUI is back up, then you can go back in and pull that information up to see exactly what each one of those means. And how long it is. And that's the one thing I didn't show you in the names. But all the rest is actually all the same. No difference. There's your health. I have health current percent, so this will show the percent. I did change the position of it. It's on the right side over here, whereas I felt that for me in the middle of a raid, having this number visible to me right there is very important. So I moved it over this side and I moved my health number over the other side. And that's the only difference. Now, the target frame, as you can see, the health is non-existent. There's no text in here. So I don't worry about the health, usually because I track that inside here. This is where my frames are for my raids and parties and everything. As a healer, I like to have them right here where I can watch my abilities, watch my character, see what's under my feet, everything else. All right. So, but everything's the same. You can set everything up. There is no PvP information for your target frame, but you really don't need that. You can set your portrait inside if you want. So if I put portrait overlay enable, there we go. It's inside. You can see it right there. But I see no need for having a portrait on my target. So I took it off. Same thing. Again, you can go in there and copy all of the information. Copy from. As you can see, that's enabled. Now when we go down to focus, you can see that's enabled. And I set focus on myself, and there's my focus frame. If I decide I'm going to focus something, that's where it's going to be. So I can just keep an eye on that. Now, I did have my focus frame down here before, but I found that I'm not using my focus frame as much anymore. If you have macros that are focus macros, then you can set the focus on there and you can monitor that, and then you can use your focus macro and you'll see the effects on that. And again, all of the settings are the same. You can change any one of these. As you can see, my height width is set a little bit different on this one. It's a little bit thicker than this one. These two used to be the same size. So the height is a little different. The width is a little different. But if I disable it, let me first take it off. There we go. And I disable it. Actually, I'll do that. And if I don't enable it, it's gone. Enable it. There it is. That's a macro that I made, by the way, that sets focus on something. All right. And same thing with focus target. So if I have my focus set and I had my focus target, I could actually put another one up underneath. So if I do this and I do this and I set focus on myself, I am targeting myself. So that's what's showing up. So maybe you want that to show up, but you move it down here. So what you do then is just go in and set up your focus target information. Maybe we want very short because we don't want to show the full name showing up. So we're going to say very short, S-H-O-R-T, enter. And there we go. And then maybe I want the width to be, what do we say? That was 161, I think it was. 161. Now, all right, so in general, that's what it is. And then when you want to move it, let's say you don't want it stacked right up on top. Maybe you want it offset over here or over here. Then you just toggle here, and there's your focus frame, focus target frame. And we put that down here and lock it, and there it is. Okay, but like I said, I don't enable that one. And under normal circumstances, I don't enable that one. Now that may be helpful in in an arena or something like that, maybe in a battleground, you want to focus the target, the flag carrier, then you can set focus on your flag carrier. Pet frame. If you have a pet class, as you can see, I have mine enabled, but that's because when I cast Gigi, Gigi is actually considered a pet. So let's cast Gigi. There you go. Gigi's a pet. And there's my pet frame and my pet bar. So I have my pet frame right here. And it shows power and everything else that I need to see. And I've disabled a lot of things. I just want the name of the pet, of the target, of the pet. And then I have power. That's it. And then all of the health settings are the same with the exception of the numbers. I don't display numbers on there. But you can. You can go in here and you can say power, let's see, health. So if I was to put health text in there, then it would show up as it does on my unit frame. And if you're not sure what you want to put in there, the text to read, copy it from here. Just select this, Control C, and then Control V, and paste it in. And it's that simple. And that's your pet frame. And then your pet target frame. If you like to see what your pet's attacking, then you can enable this as well. And then you can see, as your pet changes target, you can see what it's targeting. Arena frames. I don't PvP much, but there's where my arena frames are. Same place as my boss frames are. So if I display the frames, there you go. That's where they'll show up. Maximum of 5. And then I can determine all of this information up here as I do with my unit frames. If I want it to show up the same, then I just copy, and then you can decide whether these two are similar. So you can copy from the boss frames, or you can copy from your arena frames. That's the only two places you can copy from in this, because those two are similar, whereas all of your target frames and player frames and everything else are similar. So you can have a spec icon show up, so it'll show their specialization. You can have check range, health predictions. Height and width is standard. I do have this enabled because I do every once in a while do PvP. And this shows PvP trinket. So it shows me if it's been used or not. And that's enabled. And then the rest of the information can be changed just like everything else. Health color, text, name, power, portrait if you want your portrait overlay on there. You can put an overlay of the portrait. There we go. I just enabled it and it's there. Okay. So one note about the portrait, you see that you got the full portrait here, but only portion of it here and almost none of it here. It's based on health. It's on the health. It's not on the background. That's considered the background. Whereas that's background. This is not. This is your health. So that's why that doesn't show up. But you know what? I'm going to leave that on there. Okay. So let's not display this. Let's go to boss frames. Boss frames, what I do is, okay, so there's the boss frame. Looks similar to the arena frames. I usually don't put the boss's image in there. I have a full name. And you see what I've done with this is I've actually stacked the health and the power. Again, if I don't have them targeted, then I want to be able to look over here to see what the boss's power level is. So I know when he's going to do a certain ability. And then I have his health, and this health, as you can see, it also shows current percent. So it'll show current percent over here. So let's say at 30% you want to cast, I don't know, hero. Then at this 30% would be helpful for you if you don't have them targeted. And then you can change all of these as you did with the other ones. And you can only copy from your arena bar on this one. And to move it, just like I said with the other ones, you move it by picking up and moving from your toggle. Click your toggle anchors, and then you can pick it up and move it wherever you want it. There you go. All right. Party frames. A little bit different, okay, but generally the same. The content here is generally the same, okay. As a matter of fact, this right here is exactly the same as the portrait. Let's see. Copy from, and you can only copy it from your RAID frames or your 40-man RAID frames. Okay. So here are my frames, and as you can see, I have pet frames enabled, and that's enabled over here, party pets. That way I can see them. I don't do that for RAID frames. I do that for party frames. So basically when I'm doing a dungeon, if there is a pet class, then I want to be able to see the pet that's out there. I do not enable party target. I think that would be a little bit too much information. So under general, you just set your general topic or general information in here. And you just determine how you want it to grow. I want it to grow down, then right, which is a little bit different than my RAID frames because I want it to grow from the top down. Okay. You can have your target glow, height and width is set here. Number of groups. So in a party, I only want one group because again, that's usually in dungeons. So that's what that is. Then horizontal or vertical stacking. So if I decided I wanted to go from left to right, and that's where my party is, I have it set up exactly like my RAID frames, which you're going to see are from left to right and then down. Then I would change how this grows. So I go right to left, left to right, left, and then down. So it'll go left and then down if I have more than 5 in the group. And if I want to allow more than one row or column. The number of or more groups. Okay. But it converts over to RAID at 6. So, and that's what this is. At 6 or more, it's going to convert to RAID hide show. And this text is standard in there. I didn't change this. This is when you install it. This is how it's set up. It's just a matter of where it is on your UI. So that's that information. Health, no different. You can set it up the same way. Power, no different, same way. Same thing with name, portrait. As you can see, I don't have a portrait. But you can change all of this information as well. So let's hide that frame. So that's your party frame. You need to go in there and customize it however you want to make it look. Okay. RAID frames. So this RAID frame is for frames that are less or greater than 6 and less than 26. So anywhere from 6 to 25. When you get to a 25-man raid, it will stay there. When it goes to 40, or correction, when you get to a 40-man raid where it's 26 or more, then it will change to this unit frame automatically. And then you don't have to worry about, oh, I need to enable this one and disable it. It automatically does it with this text right here. And then you will see in here at 26 RAID, at RAID 26, non-exist, hide show. So what that's saying is hide or show this frame, this unit frame, based on the number of people that are in your group. All right, so this is the general information. Let me display the frame so you can see it. So there's a 25-man raid. Okay. Now your groups are determined by um, the top, and I don't have any RAID numbers. Um, actually, I show my RAID number up here so I know which RAID group I'm in. So this is group 1, this is group 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, this won't show any more than that. Now, the difference is, um, and this shows on this shows on your party frames as well. But um, for your raid leader and master loot will show up. The leader will show up, the master loot won't. And then the role icon is enabled, and you can move your role icon as well. So this is damage, healing, tank. And then I've also enabled the power on this one so that I can see, okay, fellow healer number 1 is running low on mana. And I'm actually pretty high. He can get a drink. I don't. And then number 2 is if I'm running low and I can see that he is high, and that gives me the ability to stop and get some. And you can determine whether you want your healer DPS. Let's say you only want to see your tank and healers icon. You can set those up, and only those will show up. Your raid icon, no different. As you can see, raid icons showing, and it shows up. And then the other thing is your buff indicator. Buff indicator. There's your ready check is showing as well. There's your raid icon. It's your buff indicator. So if there's a buff or debuff on you or a fellow party member, you'll see it. Let's say that this is a debuff. You know you have to. Let's say it's a dot. It will show up there, and you know that as a healer, I've got to heal the crap out of this person to make sure that they don't drop down too low. So that's what that's for. Everything else, I'm sorry, that's it right there. The raid debuff is indicator. And then that's the buff indicator, but this is the raid indicator. But that's what that is. If it's a dot or a debuff, it will show up, and you can change the information on here on how it shows up. As a healer, when I heal somebody, that's the buff indicator. So I just put a hot. Let's say I'm going to put. So I have a hot, and it'll show up on here. You see it ticking down right there in the corner. And depending on which one it is, depending on which buff it is, it will show up. You'll have to learn that on your class. If you put one on there, like I monitor, I monitor my my renew on my target, and I want to keep renew up. And also, enveloping mist also puts a buff on there that I also monitor. So I know that one is pink and one is blue or green. That's renew, and that's enveloping mist right there. And then there's one in each corner is where it is. Okay. But your raid debuff indicator is this that shows up in the middle, and that's the one I was talking about. Okay. Now let's disable this frame. Let's not display that one. Let's go to the 40-man frame. Display frame. So there's the 40-man frame. You can see there's not a whole lot of difference. And like I said, if you decide that you want to copy, then you copy it from your RAID frame. Everything's set up exactly the same. The only difference is the number of people in the frame or in the RAID. And you may end up having to change your height width. No issue. You can change that as you wish. And then, as I said, I go right then down. If you want, you can go left and up, left and down. So if it goes left and up, it'll start down here. And go that way, and then it'll start building up. Just a matter on how you want it to show up. Rate pets. Actually, let's go hide this one. Display frame off. Rate pets. Again, you can have your rate pets enabled if you want. I don't. If you do, then you have to decide where they're going to be because, for example, right here is where all of mine are. I don't like to have them on there because honestly, that's something that I believe that in a raid, my focus is keep um, the players alive, and it is you as a um, raid member to monitor everything that does damage for you. Beast Mastery Hunter, for example, if your pet's dead, guess what? You're not doing damage. So that's up to you to monitor that. That your pet is your weapon for a Beast Mastery Hunter. So, and the same thing with Demonology. Demonology Warlock, their pets are their damage. Okay, so that's that. And I don't enable that, and I don't set up any of that. But if you want, you can set up any one of those that you want. And it's set up exactly the same way. Assist frame and tank frames. So how those work? Well, the only way I can show you, let's see if do they have a display on these? No, they don't. I wish they did. Okay. So here they are. Here's your tank frame and your assist frame. I usually overlap them because they're not usually used together. We do use one. We set main tank. So if I could, which I don't think I can, because I'm not in a raid. There are no tanks. If I was in a raid, yeah, see, I can't do that. So if I was in a raid, I would be able to go here, and I could actually set this as a main tank. When I set that as a main tank, then the tank frame shows up right here, right there. All right. So as a healer, I like to see that, and I try to get my raid leads to make sure they set tank, main tank, and which ours are pretty good about doing that. So by doing that, that allows me to see my main tank right here. There's usually two. I have both marked as main tank, and I see both tanks right here, even though they're in the raid frames. They'll show up right here. So then I can just really just focus these if I need to focus the tank. There's a big hit coming in. I need to focus the tank. I can do that right here without having to find him in the frame. And that's how that works. And honestly, that's it. The only other thing is toggling, which we covered that. This is where all my frames are, my party frames, my raid frames. These are my boss and arena frames, my target frame, player frame. And if I use focus, I would have my focus frame up here, but as you can see, it's disabled. And that's it. That's all there is to setting up your frames. I hope this helped. If there's anything that I missed that you didn't catch, just let me know. I can go back over it. I'll try to answer your question, point you to a certain place on this or another video. But if hopefully I answered all your questions, and thanks for watching. I'll talk to you later.